Hello and welcome to Serious Insights. I'm your host, Kristi Campbell, and I'm joined today by fellow MVP Jarrod Kingston, the solution engineering leader at IBM. Hi, Jarrod.
Hey, Kristi. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, when I think Experience Cloud, you definitely come to mind. So can you tell me a little bit about how you kind of ended up being the master of Experience Cloud at IBM? A master.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say the master.
Yeah. Don't put me on that big of a pedestal. I'd say I'm, in some ways tutored by what I think of the master, because he literally wrote the book on it, Phil Weinmeister, my colleague and friend. So of course I have to mention him. But as a part of IBM, right? I've been a part of IBM for almost 2 years now. I came over by way of acquisition of 7 Summits, and I think for those listening in, they may be familiar with 7 Summits, and our primary thing was Experience Cloud. And so I knew Experience Cloud before coming over to 7 Summits, which I was there for about almost 3 years before being acquired, and that when we continue to do it, but the deep dive, right, that we did as a part of 7 Summits really got me to where I knew the product more intimately than I did previously. And so I've been working.
May have wanted to.
Yes, right. Yeah, so I've been working with it for quite a long time now in various aspects, and had to work through different use cases day in and day out with our customers, and try to figure out what's the best way to use the platform. So yeah, it's been a long journey, but I have done a lot with it, and continue to work with it.
Well, forgive me in advance if I say communities and not experiences, because I don't work with it as much as I used to. So I haven't been rebranded, and even before then there were portals. So yeah. For us veterans, I definitely can see it's come a long way, but in general, if someone had never used Experience Cloud or heard of it, how would you explain what is Experience Cloud?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And yeah, it used to, when it originally came around, right, Salesforce saw the need for this portal type environment, right, where a customer could log in and interact with their data in essence, but within this Salesforce framework, right, without having to, because previously to that, right, a lot of customers were using things like Jive and Lithium and other platforms, and so Salesforce really saw an opportunity there, and started with portal experiences, which was really centered around customer portals, and then they started to build in some partner portals and whatnot, but it was really this very basic portal experience, old Salesforce tabs, kind of the old Aloha environment look and feel. And then it really took off with the introduction of Community Cloud, which really blew things out of the water as far as what it used to be. And of course, just like Salesforce likes to do, they renamed it Experience Cloud, which makes sense because as you interact with the product, it is an experience, right? It's more than just community. Community is a piece of Experience Cloud, and so yeah, it's really come a long way. They've added a ton to it. They continue to enhance just the platform behind it and what it runs on, how fast it is, performance, and even adding additional pieces like LWR as of recent for Lightning Web Runtime to help enable customers to take it beyond portals and experiences, and even do things like their website, right, and microsites and things like that, all through the Sites framework. So there's, it continues to grow, and they continue to add on to it, and it's come a long way. So
yeah, I think it's an interesting product that has a lot of variance. Just like if you're so inclined, you could go build your own website from scratch with, write your own, I'm probably dating myself, HTML, and make your site do whatever, host it yourself, whatever you need to do. But there's also WordPress, right? There's also ways to get started with a website. And to me, Experiences is similar, right? They have templates. They have, just like when you turn on Lightning, there's default pages. So you can start with something if you need a way for, your high volume customers to see their cases, right? You can stand that up fairly straightforwardly with the templates without having to start from scratch and, raw code an entire website.
Yeah, I think that, you're right. It's one of the great things about it is it sticks to kind of Salesforce's core, platform values, if you will, is, you can take it pretty far declaratively, right? Like, but you can take it even further if you want to with code, as with anything, right? And so, with the templates that are provided from just a general site perspective with key use cases such as Partner Central, they continue to add things from an industry perspective. So like financial services, for example, has some specific templates out there. And then on top of that, they even have what are called theme layouts that give you some pre-built themes that have some pre-built design to it, and then you're just swapping out colors and images with your company's branding. But that sort of thing, right, you can make it look really nice, honestly, without doing any customization, just through point and click. And then, there are a whole host of different sites out there that people probably access today that they don't even know it's an Experience Cloud site, because you can take it that far to where you don't even know that it's Salesforce behind the scenes. But you can get there if you so choose. So it's there's a lot of flexibility and adaptability built into it.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned, the declarative piece. There's certainly, especially with Lightning and the builder and the idea of components and configuring components, I feel like the experiences builder is really similar in terms of, kind of how you set those, kind of theme options and settings, as well as, creating pages and dragging components onto pages. One thing I think that's great about IBM is that you've got basically Labs app component. Well, I guess they're not labs. That's Salesforce Labs, right? They're IBM Labs. Yeah. Components for communities specific experiences specifically, right?
Yeah. And that's again, so for those, for listeners who haven't used Experience Cloud, it does translate very well. So if you've built pages within Lightning Experience, it's the same concept, right? You're building pages. You have preset page layouts where you have a section at the top and maybe a wide section and a slim sidebar section. It also has what's called a flexible layout, which is just what it is called, right? Where you can
like dashboards now, where you can like set the size of the components.
In essence, yeah. I mean, you create your different sections within your page that you want. You can resize, add out as many columns, all of that. Even some of the branding and imagery behind it. So it's got a lot of flexibility. And then, it's just like Lightning App Builder, where you're adding components in and you're moving components around. And those could be a mix of standard out-of-the-box components or custom components that you get from the App Exchange or purchase from other partners. One of the things that we found very useful is building those components for our customers. And we have several that are free watermarked apps on the App Exchange that help with key use cases, and then we'll sell them as larger, what we call accelerators, that are pre-built products that our customers can plug and play, but they're still component-driven things that you can lay out in different ways. So I think that brings some of the power to it, right? Because you can mix the two together. You get a lot of flexibility on how you want it to look. For your certain use cases.
So you mentioned the templates, and we've talked kind of about the builder and components. You mentioned LWR, and I don't feel like I fully understand what that means.
Yeah. Well, I'll try best to explain it, because some of it, to be honest, right, like I'm not a developer by trade.
Because it almost feels like a template.
Yeah.
But I don't think it is.
Yeah, it's not. And so... to kind of explain it at a very base level, right? in essence, it all has to do with speed, right? And so the original Experience Cloud platform was built on what most of us probably know as Aura or Aura components. And so the Aura runtime, right, isn't as fast as Salesforce would like it to be. And so there's been a long effort underway to build out Lightning Web Runtime, which is much more what you would expect from your general web experience, right? Whenever you go, I'll just use examples people know, like Amazon or whatever, right? Like those commercial grade websites that you're used to experiencing, fast load times, things like that. That's where Lightning Web Runtime is meant to change the game, as Salesforce has looked at, hey, we need to have better performance, so we're going to build a better platform for it to load on, and that's Lightning Web Runtime. And so what they've done is, because they know many customers have things already built on the Aura Sites platform, right? Now you can create LWR sites that only use LWC components. So the key thing there is that LWC components, right, were introduced a while ago, and those are much faster and more performant. They are more flexible. There's a lot more, from a coding perspective you can do than Aura components. So by doing that, now you have faster sites, components load faster, and some of the more entry points right now are more like the microsites for marketing campaigns. But I know from talking to Salesforce specifically, there are many customers already up and running with their experiences on LWR. So it's come a long way, and like I said, it's really two different platforms, if you will, from a runtime perspective. And
but if you're starting from scratch, you might want to use the new fancy thing, although then there may not be as many. Can you use Aura components on a Lightning Web Runtime? You
cannot. And so the trade-off right now, and Salesforce knows this, is that there aren't as many out-of-the-box components with LWR sites. And so the trade-off is, if you use Aura, you get more out-of-the-box components. If you use LWR, you get less. There are some there. Things like Flow. Flow can be used within LWR. Most, like all of our accelerator components, any LWC can be used within LWR. So that's the trade-off, is you may have a standard thing that's not there. You may have to recreate if you need it in LWR. But
which will continue to change release after release, right? I mean, I'm sure.
100%. And I think too, right, you have to evaluate that as a business of what are we trying to accomplish with Experience Cloud, and then from there you can make the decision. Okay, can we do LWR? What do we have to build? What do we not have to build? Right. But I would certainly recommend LWR should be something they seriously try to use, if at all possible, because it is the path
and
forward.
That's part of why I saw in the recent release, I think, moving experiences between environments has gotten better since my last experience that used to make me want to poke my eye out. But that's for the LWR sites, I think. Does that sound like a true fact?
Yeah, it is. And frankly, that's where Salesforce is putting the investment, right? Like, they're investing in LWR. They're not investing in Aura per se. But they do. And part of that investment is deployability, right? How do I deploy changes between things, and so forth. So, I mean, there are still some gotchas and things like that around deploying Experience Cloud sites. If you're an admin and maybe don't know how to use, Salesforce DX or other methods of deploying things with DevOps, that it's not as straightforward, right? Like there's some things that you have to do with change sets to make it all work, some manual steps. But Salesforce knows that, and I think, and they're working on it, right? Which I think is the cool thing, is that they're not just ignoring that; they're working towards better solutions there to improve those steps.
Yeah, and I feel like the grandpa that's like, back in my day, but, I couldn't promote audiences. So I had to rebuild my audiences across 3 different environments, which included, I needed a bunch of numbers or something and ranges, and it was a whole fun thing. But you do have similar, visibility with audiences and component specific controls, again, similar to Lightning. So it's nice, but yes, I'm sure it's even better. This is all I shouldn't bring all my PTSD into this conversation. So we talked a little bit about the different types of users that you can have. And we mentioned customers as use case and partner central. I wanted to just touch on licensing a bit because one of the things, if you have Service Cloud, one of the things I think is really interesting is being able to have an internal knowledge base that's also available externally, which doesn't require licenses, but it can, right? So you can control what's in your public knowledge base versus what people see when they're signed in. Tell me a little bit about like the different types of licenses that you might need to buy to have Experience Cloud. Yeah.
And I think, and I think that's one of the things that when a lot of times people hear a portal environment, right, they immediately think like authentication, right? Like I have to be authenticated. I have to have a user license. The cool thing about Experience Cloud is that that's not always the case, right? You can have an Experience Cloud site that has portions of it from both a page and data perspective available to any public person or what we call a guest user, right? Mm-hmm. And then you can have the authenticated side of that. And so, from a guest perspective, a ton of our customers, right? Take Del Boomi, for example. If you go to Del Boomi site, their Experience Cloud site, there's a lot that's available on their Experience Cloud site just through a guest, without logging in, right? And that's a powerful piece that you can, anyone can do today is take their knowledge base and put it on a public Experience Cloud site so users can access it that way without ever having to log in. Now, to advance on that, you start authenticating users, and there's, just like with any Salesforce license, there's tiering to that. So your most basic is a customer community license, which gives you access to the basic things of, viewing knowledge articles, being able to submit cases, see some data, etc. But then you can expand upon that with like Customer Community Plus, which gives you more access to things like reports and dashboards and some additional features. And really, when you kind of level it all up, partner experience or partner community licenses are the top level, right? Because with your partner, right, you're working on a lot of things. Yeah, you're sharing opportunities. Yeah, exactly. You need to give them more access anyways than maybe a customer would really need. And then they have given additional flexibility from an actual licensing perspective when it comes to how that is all set up. And what I mean by that is, in a standard license for the standard platform login, it's what we call a named license, right? You're giving that user to Kristi, right? Kristi has a login. And it doesn't matter if Kristi uses that login one time a month or 100 times a month. That's her login. You're paying for that one login. Well, with Experience Cloud, because it's a website in essence, there's, you could log in, again, same thing. You could log in once or 100 times. And so what they did to provide flexibility for customers where you don't have maybe a high use experience that, hey, they're logging in every so often, but they still need access. Well, you can have what's in essence called pooled logins, where you can buy so many logins per month, right? And that gives you flexibility to say, hey, I could have 10,000 users for my Experience Cloud site, but I'm only paying for X number of logins per month to be shared across all of those users. But you can also mix that with, say you have a high volume user who's logging in more than the normal user.
Yep.
you can say, hey, I'm going to give that person a named login. So it doesn't matter if they log in 1,000 times per month. There's the same cost, right? And they don't count against my my pooled logins. Okay. I can have a name login. So we see customers do that quite a bit because it gives them flexibility, right? And certainly, right, some may just have full name logins and that's what they decide to go with. But it does give you flexibility, which is really nice.
Am I right that if you don't need anyone to log in, like if I just wanted a public knowledge base and a case submission form that asks you your email, that I could do that today? I don't need licenses to do that? Or did I make that up in my head?
Correct. Yeah, you don't need licensing to do that. You
just would have the one guest site user.
Right. Yeah, it's one guest site user. So, you're obviously there's some limits there, and there are some. I'd have to go look. There is information in the documentation as far as like site usage and whatnot and traffic on the site, but you can, in essence, spin up. You don't have to have an authenticated site. Experience. It can be completely public, right?
Yeah, because I was thinking that was a segue into my thought of, I think it's a really interesting product to grow into, right? So if you want us, because starting a community, and you mentioned experience is not just community, but like that idea of community and just what we think about with the Trailblazer community, right? Where you've got groups, you've got, people that have profiles that are talking to each other. Like that's a large investment, and it's a lot to moderate and monitor. And, in today's day and age, right, every company I have has me have a login to something. So it may not be the answer, but I think it's interesting to consider trying something on an Experience Cloud site to get familiar. Maybe it's a page that you just want to put some information out that you're linking to from a tweet, from something, or even just like I said, a straight unauthenticated case submission. And then, as you see traction or interest, that then you can, evolve that idea. It doesn't all have to be phase one. We have this beautiful site you can't even tell is a Salesforce site. So I didn't know about the pooled combined with named. I think that's really interesting. If your enterprise customers have one seat that is for their, primary admin, then you can have, a shared pooled logins for their other admins or less frequent users. So you can kind of combine to meet your needs that might evolve, right? Again, you could start with pooled and then, promote to named. So there's a lot of flexibility there, which I think is really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there's a lot of use cases. I'm trying to pull up, here. I will tell you, I did look up the help documentation does have Experience Cloud site usage allocation. So it does depend upon, Enterprise Edition versus Unlimited versus Performance, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
As far as, there's maximums around page usage. And so that's certainly something that everyone should,
consider before you just launch a site, because Kristi said so.
Right, exactly. And so, the other thing I was going to say is, from a use case perspective, there's a lot of, I think you got to start somewhere. And what I always tell my customers is find a key pain point where you can start small, make a good experience, get people engaged, and then add to it over time, because that is the beauty of the platform and what you can do, right? You can add pages, add additional data, add functionality over time, because it can expand across a lot of different things. And a lot of times people do start at that support, self-service functionality. If you don't have that today within your company, that is an awesome area to think about. It's an easy win, yes, where there's a lot of out-of-the-box functionality around it, and you can get going pretty quickly.
standard
with your customers.
components. And,
Yeah.
Do you have maybe one or two other use cases? I think I'm like pigeonholing my own brain into, partners sharing leads and ops and customers seeing their cases and knowledge. Like, what other kind of things are people experiencing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's, one thing to not lose sight of is employees, right? Employee intranets, certainly, right? Even if you're a company that everybody has a Salesforce login, you can maybe only do so much, right? But you could use those logins to create an employee intranet where it's, has a little bit more design around it, more functionality around, how employees absorb content, collaborate with one another. And so certainly employee intranets can be used there. The other thing I would say is, and we're seeing a lot more of, is a commerce perspective, right? Having, whether it's B2B, and there's going to be much more coming from a B2C perspective, but, the ability for people to transact and, do commerce within an Experience Cloud site is key. And so that's definitely a key use case. And then, I mean, from a industry perspective, there's a wide range, right? I mean, you have financial services using it in various ways to interact with their customers, or agents and advisors viewing data and interacting with that, to in higher education, right, for alumni communities and student experiences, and so forth, that Experience Cloud is perfectly set up to help advance those. And so there's a lot of different ones, and like I said, they can be from small to very large experiences.
That's awesome. I think that's helpful to think of, other not my day job ways that people can use these tools. I think specifically Experience Cloud is really cool for intentional admins, right? If people are just deciding to start becoming an admin and getting involved in the Salesforce industry, you mentioned various use cases and types of companies I think will use Experience Cloud, and you can build out whatever ideas you have in a dev org and share those as a living resume through Experience Cloud, right? So things that you have built, you can make available to people. So obviously Trailhead is a great place to, learn about Experience Cloud in general. I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Phil's book. So tell me more.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've got a copy right there.
Yeah. I do actually, right up here on my shelf. Yeah. So I think Experience Cloud is something that any admin should frankly learn. And that's a great way to do it is build your own site and build it, and share what you're doing from an expertise standpoint out on it. Phil's several resources, right? Phil's book is an excellent practical guide to Salesforce now Experience Cloud. The first is their second edition, obviously, because Experience Cloud
first one was Communities. Yeah,
first one was Communities. Now it's Experience Cloud. I did the technical review for that, and it's a great book, right? If it's a great way to just go through every aspect of how you can set up an Experience Cloud site, all the ins and outs of the settings. There's Phil and I have also done some courses on Pluralsight, which are great to check out if you want more visual courses that are kind of broken up. And so that's something interesting to check out. But it's a great one. Get your hands on it. Go do it in a dev org, because that is the cool thing, right? I mean, you can go do a dev org and build your Experience Cloud site, publish that site, and allow people to go view that. I know, many people use it. I know when I was a part of, say, MVP Office Hours, for example, we built a Experience Cloud site to, drive people to register things, see information around the office hours, all of that. So, it's a great way for managing a lot of those pieces within within
using
the site.
Salesforce to learn about Salesforce and
That's
show
right.
other people what you've
That's
learned
right.
about Salesforce.
I mean, absolutely.
How much better could it get?
I mean,
I love it.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, I did want to ask, when you take an ad minute for yourself to read and learn about admin things out there on the internet, is there something you'd recommend that our listeners check out?
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't use my company's own content. That's I think, as people look at next year and the upcoming year and how they innovate on the platform, we at Dreamforce released what we call our State of the Salesforce report, which really takes our in-depth research of trends that we're seeing in the marketplace and where people are taking the platform and functionalities that they should think about taking advantage of. I think it's important from an admin perspective to know those things, right? Because you want to be able to speak intelligently, within your company to say, hey, this area of the Salesforce platform we're not using to the extent that we could. And here's why we should do it beyond just it's a great piece of functionality, right? There needs to be a business reason behind that. And that's what we found with, talking with different executives at our customers of what they're looking to solve from a business perspective and what pieces of functionality on the platform can you use to do that. And so I certainly recommend the State of Salesforce report because it has a lot of good insights in there of some of the functionalities that are going to help drive change over the next.
We love
next several
insights.
years. Yeah, insights.
Serious
are great.
insights.
Yeah. Good plug.
My plug for puns. I love it.
Yeah.
My admin this week is a Medium article by. I tried to practice saying this name so I would be better. I think it's Barack Fenerkaglu. But it's about asking questions about customer data, and that is just a top of mind project for me right now in terms of we had 2 orgs merge into one, and we've had our org for a while. So there's, I've been told on some objects, more fields than all of Iowa. So
it's a lot of fields.
Yeah, it's a lot of fields. So it just really helped me think about the questions to be asking as I kind of forge through evaluating what updates I need to do and to help things be a little speedier for my users. So it's a great article. Thanks, Barack. And thank you, Jarrod, so much for talking through Experience Cloud with me. And it's brought back some memories. My first full Salesforce admin job where it was like my title. I launched a partner portal at the time, which was like new big thing for me, new skills. So
yeah, that's
Experience
awesome.
Cloud is dear to my heart, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. No, I appreciate you having me on. It's great to talk about a tool that I use every day.
All day. I love it.
Yeah, all day, every day. So yeah, it's definitely one that like I said, I encourage any admin developer if they are not familiar with it, go get familiar with it because it is a powerful tool.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.